Well, hey there, guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, what did Kenny do on vacation? Well, just recently, my wife and I got back from our summer vacation, and our normal spot to vacation would be on the east coast of Canada, or more specifically, the province of Newfoundland. We haven't been there in 5 years, so this year it was time to book a flight and head back there to enjoy some of our favorite spots. Now, you can drive to Newfoundland if you want, but it's a 3-day trek that also involves a 6 to 8 hour ferry ride across the Atlantic Ocean. So in the interest of not spending a total of 6 days in a vehicle, we opted for a 3-hour plane ride instead. Now, in years past, I have shown my vacation videos of the island of Newfoundland, and it has basically been a video of places that we went and what we did. So some of this might be a bit of a repeat performance for some of you longtime subscribers, but the older vacation videos are still a part of the channel, and if you're interested in seeing them, I'm going to post the links to those down below in the description. Now, flying into Gander, Newfoundland on a Monday morning offers a blend of history and charm. Plus, it was cheaper to fly on a weekday rather than a weekend. So that's the option we chose. As our plane came in for a landing, the first thing we got to see was the island's rugged landscape and intricate coastline. Gander International Airport, once a key refueling stop for the transatlantic flights and most famous for its role during the 9/11 attacks, now serves as a welcoming gateway to Newfoundland. After picking up our rental car, we drove for an hour to arrive at the house where we would be staying for our 2-week visit. I normally live in a large city where the traffic is horrendous and the congestion is unbearable, so for me, it's a pleasure to drive in a province where none of this really exists for the most part. The drive has some pretty amazing views, and the weather was perfect, making for a relaxing and enjoyable start to our vacation. My wife and I have some favorite places that we like to visit, and this year we went to some new places as well. We like to mix it up a bit and choose different towns to drive to and see what they have to offer. Now, most of them don't have much in the way of tourist attractions, but what they do have is some pretty spectacular scenery and some gorgeous landscapes. The only problem with visiting Newfoundland is that if you want to go anywhere, you're going to need to drive. And I don't mean a 10-minute jaunt down the road to get to your destination. I'm talking about a drive of anywhere between 1 and 4 or more hours to get there. So you really have to plan your day trips accordingly. Some of the scenery while driving through Newfoundland, however, is pretty incredible. So there is that to look forward to. And if you like scenery, you're going to get your fill because nothing is close and everything requires an extensive drive. Just like driving anywhere in the world, there will still always be some kind of construction to deal with, whether they're installing new culverts under the Trans-Canada Highway or they're clearing the bush on the side of the roadways to give more visibility to drivers. Construction is inevitable, but the good news is that in Newfoundland, the delays are usually very short and the traffic is almost always light. There are 2 major dangers when driving in Newfoundland that you need to be aware of. One of those hazards is moose. You need to be careful of the moose that can be crossing the highway or coming up from the roadside ditches, as hitting one of these large animals can do serious damage to your vehicle at best or be fatal to you and your passengers at worst. This guy here obviously didn't look both ways before crossing the highway, and I hope that no one, other than the moose, was injured when this guy was hit, or girl, shall I say, as this is a cow. The second danger in Newfoundland is potholes. The highway can be older and in need of repair, and the extreme weather condition changes don't help the situation. While the roads and highways do have quite a bit of patchwork done to the potholes, you still need to be careful while driving, as the distance between towns can be extreme, and sustaining damage to your vehicle on one of these long drives can result in being stranded in the middle of nowhere, waiting for a tow truck or a ride to the nearest town. Better to avoid the potholes and avoid the frustration. Sometimes we don't need to drive anywhere to see nice scenery, and even a stroll through town can provide some beautiful views. Staying at a house that's right on the water has its advantages, and one of them is definitely the view. One of our favorite towns to visit is a place called Twillingate, and on day 5 of our vacation, we headed there for the day. Once again, there is quite a drive involved to get there, and it's approximately 1.5 hour drive to get there from where we were staying. The scenery along the way is pretty spectacular, and there are plenty of small towns to visit along the drive if you're interested in that sort of thing. Twillingate is known as the iceberg capital of the world, and huge icebergs are usually seen between May and July. Unfortunately, only one iceberg came in this year, and it was pretty much gone by the end of June, so we weren't able to see any icebergs on this year's trip. Twillingate is actually an island that is located off the northeast coast of Newfoundland. The island is connected to the mainland by a series of bridges and causeways, and it's about 100 kilometers from the main town of Gander. It has a population of approximately 2,500 people, and while it once thrived on the cod fishing business, tourism has become one of the main industries of Twillingate's economy since the cod moratorium in 1992. The town of Crowhead at the north end of Twillingate Island is home to some great hiking trails and some very scenic views of the Atlantic via the lookout areas there. The Long Point Lighthouse adorns the edge of the coast, and although I've only heard it once, the foghorn from this lighthouse is absolutely deafening. We didn't walk to any of the trails this year, but we definitely enjoyed the view. Now, if you look closely, you can see some people walking below us on the trails, so that will give you an idea of exactly how high up we are on the hillside of this island. One of the other attractions that we like to visit in Twillingate is the Twillingate Heritage Museum, which is housed in the old Anglican rectory and was built in 1915. The museum is packed with a variety of exhibits sampling the community's history and traditions. Displays of old uniforms, instruments, toys, cooking utensils, powder horns, and much more gives you a glimpse into the way that things used to be. There's even an antique scroll saw, which I was more than interested in, and right beside it is a scrolled clock that was made by one of the local residents and donated to the museum. Now, if this clock looks familiar, that's because I made the same clock many years ago. The only difference is that my clock has a base and shop-made cabriolet legs. The museum isn't to the standards of a big city museum by any means, but it is a charming glimpse into the history of the town and the simplicity of a time gone by. A trip to Twillingate would not be the same for us without stopping into R&J's restaurant to have lunch. Their fish and chips is our favorite menu choice, and we enjoyed every bite of it. Now, on day 7 of our vacation, we visited another one of our favorite places, and that would be Kings Point. It's another long drive from where we stay, and this one will take you about 2 hours each way, but it's a nice little town to visit. The town is located on the north shore of the southwest arm of Green Bay, near the head of the bay, about 10 kilometers off the Trans-Canada Highway. The town is a small community and only has a population of about 670 people. In past years, we've been able to walk along the harbor front and watch whales play in the harbor. This year, however, there were no whales to be had. It was a pretty rainy day, but we still had a good time, and it's still a nice town to visit. This year, we chose not to visit the Kings Point Whale Pavilion, although in past years we have visited and enjoyed the experience. We didn't spend too much time in Kings Point, and after visiting a few craft shops, we decided to head about 10 kilometers out of town to the town of Springdale. Now, Springdale is a little larger than Kings Point with a population of 2,971. There wasn't much footage taken in Springdale as we just did a little bit of shopping, had some lunch, and then hit the highway back to where we were staying. When it comes to traveling the Isle and visiting different towns, I have no criteria for going to any location. I just like to see the different towns and the different scenery. For years, I've been wanting to visit a town called Harbor Breton for no other reason than it was located on the far south coast of the island. So on day 9 of our vacation, we packed up the vehicle and started the drive south. If you were to go as the crow flies, almost directly south of where I'm staying, you would run into the town of Harbor Breton, and it would probably be a fairly quick trip. But due to the twisting highways and connecting routes, the drive one way was almost a 4-hour trip. The town has plenty of attractions, most of which are hiking trails, but there are plenty of other things to do as well. boat tours, rock climbing, kayaking, a heritage center, beaches, lookouts, and one of my favorite things, a lighthouse. We never got to do as much as we would have liked while in Harbor Breton, and the main reason for that was it took us longer to get there than we anticipated, and we ran out of time. We got a bit of a later start than we wanted to, and when we added in time to get ourselves some lunch, there just wasn't enough time in the day. But we plan on going there again, probably next year, and visiting Dead Man's Cove. When we were there in Harbor Breton this year, the fog rolled in just after arriving and our visibility was pretty low. But just off the coast of Harbor Breton is an island. You can see the island from Dead Man's Cove on a clear day. So we're hoping that next year our skies will be clear and our timing will be better, because that island, even though it's nestled in amongst the islands of Newfoundland, is actually owned by France. And the only way to travel there is by ferry across the water. The place that I'm referring to is called St. Pierre and Miquelon. We were hoping to be able to see that island, but time just didn't allow for it. Now, if you're a Canadian citizen, you do not require a passport to visit St. Pierre and Miquelon as long as you have a government-issued photo ID. The locals there speak European French, but many are also fluent in English. And while they do accept Canadian currency, because they're owned by France, the euro is what is normally used on the island. So although we didn't get a chance to visit there this year, we will do some better planning for next year's trip and try and make the trip, if for nothing more than to say that, hey, we've been to France. On day 11 of our vacation, we made our way to Leading Tickles, Newfoundland. Leading Tickles is nestled along the shores of the Bay of Exploits. It's a rather small community, and although I couldn't find any current population data, in 2021, Leading Tickles only had a total of 295 residents. So you can imagine how small the town is and how little it has to offer as far as tourism and attractions is concerned. The drive to Leading Tickles from the town we were staying was about an hour and a half, but once again, it wasn't about the time behind the wheel, but more about the scenery along the way. You may wonder how many trees, skies, and hillsides you can see before you get tired of it, and the answer is you never get tired of it. While there really isn't much to see in the town, our purpose for going there is to visit the Ocean View Park, and one of the things that attracts us to the park is the black sand beach. The unique black sand is a coarse sand that looks and feels amazing. Now, I've read that it's formed from volcanic minerals, but I can't confirm or deny the validity of that information. And after all, not everything you see or read on the internet is true. There really aren't any restaurants or dining opportunities in Leading Tickles, so we just enjoyed a packed lunch at the park. We wanted to see as much of the beaches as we could, so we didn't even sit down to eat. We just ate as we walked to save some time, and we spent quite a while on the beaches and walking around the park. And if you ever get a chance to visit Newfoundland, you need to make the Ocean View Park one of your stops on your itinerary. It is well worth the $5 admission to get into the park. On day 13 of our vacation, we visited the Salmonid Interpretation Center in Grand Falls, Newfoundland. Located on the banks of the Exploits River, this center is dedicated to the study and preservation of Atlantic salmon and their natural habitat. The Salmonid Interpretation Center used to have educational exhibits and interactive displays to offer insights into the life cycle of Atlantic salmon. But after coming under new management, quite a few of these have been removed. After speaking with the center staff, we were assured that a revamp of the center was underway and that the new and interesting displays were in the works and would be in place in the very near future. So visitors can still observe the live salmon in the center's viewing tanks and learn about the challenges these fish face in their natural environment, as well as the conservation efforts in place to protect them. The staff was on hand to answer any questions we had and provide additional information of the importance of salmon conservation. The center's location by the river added to the experience, allowing us to appreciate the natural beauty of the area as well. Some of the views from atop the lookouts are quite incredible, and there are plenty of photo ops along the way. If you're interested, they even have a whitewater rafting experience that you can sign up for and enjoy. We weren't feeling that adventurous, so we opted to take a rain check on that experience. While the interpretation center is rather small, it's still a great way to spend the afternoon. And while only about an hour drive from home, it's one of the more local and accessible places to visit. During our vacation in Newfoundland, our days were filled with a mix of road trips and local activities. Those local activities included things like maintenance on the house, cutting the grass, working on the quad and ride on lawnmower, or just going for a walk through town or visiting relatives. But one of the best local places to visit is Wolfies Pond. Wolfies Pond, located in Lewisport, Newfoundland, is actually a large trailer park that's built on a freshwater pond. The pond is surrounded by lush vegetation and offers a beautiful backdrop for leisurely walks and wildlife observation. The boardwalk around Wolfies Pond is 2.5 kilometers long and provides an accessible route to enjoy the natural beauty of the area with elevated views of the water and the surrounding landscape via the various lookouts. While my wife and I have climbed up to the lookouts in the past, we weren't that interested this year, so we opted out of those. After all, we're on vacation, and you know what? We wanted as little effort as possible. The boardwalk's length and scenic views make it an ideal spot for daily walks, if you like, and it's a perfect way to enjoy the outdoors, which many of the locals take advantage of. The fact that it's only about a 10-minute drive from the house makes it a very accessible option to get a little exercise and burn off some of those extra vacation calories. Well, as is commonly said, all good things must come to an end, and after 2 full weeks on the island, it was time to leave. It never fails that time flies when we're there, and the 2 weeks seem to pass as quickly as what this episode of the show did. Hopefully the time will go just as quickly waiting for our next East Coast adventure, and we will be back before we know it. For now, though, it's time to say goodbye to the island. Until next time. And there you have it. What did Kenny do for vacation? Guys, I've been going to the province of Newfoundland since I was a young child, younger than I can remember. Both of my parents are both from the province, and most of my family still lives there, so it's not unheard of for us to travel back and visit family and see the island. Now, if you ever get a chance to visit Newfoundland, there's so much to see and so many little pockets of interesting things that you can do that you may not necessarily know about. They're not necessarily advertised. Twillingate's a big one. A lot of people have heard of Twillingate. A lot of people have heard, of course, of Gander because of the airport. Let's say Deer Lake, another airport. St. John's is the big one with the George Street bars and that sort of thing, if that's what you're into, whatever. I'm not a fan of St. John's. I prefer the smaller towns. And I like to visit the small little towns around the island and just see what's there. Sometimes it's nothing but a small little fishing community that has some beautiful scenery with the water and the boats and the fishing gear and the little houses all the way around. It's quite the experience. And it's not necessarily about actually doing anything. I've had people say, why would you want to go there? There's nothing there. I don't care. I just want to see it. I just want to go there and experience it. I want to see it. I want to see how the people live. I want to see their houses. I want to see dockside. I want to see the boats in the water. I want to see the sand. I want to smell the beach. I enjoy all of that. That is what I enjoy. I don't like sitting static. I've never understood going on a vacation and just sitting static by poolside, sipping on a margarita or whatever. I don't get it. It's not what I do. It's not what I like to do. I like to keep moving. I like to go places. I like to see things. I like to do things. And just sitting around doing nothing is not in my wheelhouse. It's not what I'm comfortable with. I like to be on the move. And if you like seeing little towns and pieces of scenery and wilderness and that sort of thing, Newfoundland is the province that you've got to visit. And I've had so many people when they hear that I went to Newfoundland again, oh, I always wanted to go there. I'd love to go there. You know what, guys? Stop talking about it. Stop saying how much you'd love to go there. You only live once. Life is short. Book your flight and visit the province because truly it is the most beautiful province in Canada. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I had a great time for the 2 weeks I was there. I always enjoy my time there. And I hope that you guys get the opportunity to visit as well sometime. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We have an amazing audience base, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of that. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I hope you've seen something that you haven't seen before. I hope you've seen maybe some experience here on the show that you enjoyed. I hope you were able to take something positive from the show, but more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesdays.